Hi everybody, nice to see you. Hi DNA, thanks, I appreciate that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you a little bit about my past, my background, my business I had downtown called DNA's Comedy Lab, what I'm doing now, and then a little Q&A, see how we can do that in 15 minutes. So, I started producing events when I was 8 years old. I found that when my family was in the house, if I charged them $2 to go into the basement and put on a show, I could make some decent money. I think I made more money when I was 8 years old than I make doing shows now. And then I spent 19 years in Chico. Anyone ever been to Chico? Nice. It's like Disneyland for alcoholics. Great town. And I put on about 3,000 shows up there. I did mostly free shows. I did citywide events. I did big festivals, I did small festivals, I did the thing. Anyone hear of South by Southwest? It's a pretty big event in Austin. I did Nowhere by Nowhere in Chico. And we did 150 bands in 3 days. We did rock and roll golf, where you would have a band on the golf course and you would putt with guitars. I also had a film festival, a poetry slam, there was raves. It was a big event, and we did that for 5 years. And that was just one thing. I also did concerts in the downtown plaza every week for 14 years. And then the problem with Chico, it's in Chico. And so we decided, my wife and I, to move down here to Santa Cruz, where she's from. And that's when I kind of made the turn towards comedy and getting away from bands. Because the problem with bands is the drummer always cries. And so it's not a great experience. And so I started working with comedians. Comedians so much easier to work with, no sound checks, okay? They just show up, they're ready to go. And I started doing shows at the Blue Lagoon. Anybody been to the Blue Lagoon? If you've never been there, quick piece of advice, don't touch anything. And so, I got 10 minutes on the Blue Lagoon. We don't have that kind of time. I did shows there every week for 14 years. And then at the same time, I was starting shows up at Rosie McCann's, which we just relaunched again last week. It's starting now on Mondays. I started doing shows in Capitola, on the Wharf, everywhere through downtown, and then started the Santa Cruz Comedy Festival. Has anybody ever been to that? This is going to be our 9th year that we do it. Last year we did it in London Nelson Park. The year before that we did it in a parking lot at Walgreens, where you would sit in your car and watch the comedy. And if you liked the comedy, you'd honk your horn. And if you didn't like the comedy, you'd rev your engine and threaten to run us over. It was dangerous. But we persevered through those 2 years. But in March 2019, I took over the Riverfront Twin movie theater here, and I repurposed it and turned it into a performing arts center, but also a comedy club. And we learned early on that comedy wasn't going to carry it, so we started renting it out. I found a lot of stakeholders at UCSC and Cabrillo, and we started using all the rooms. There were big rooms. We had a 360-seat room, 160-seat room, and the lobby was 150. And so we would have, in my first year, I had 288 shows there. And so we had all kinds of shows, and it became kind of a hub for the community. It was a really unique place. And then March 2020, 1 year celebration, brand new chef, brand new panini press, new menu. We had to shut down because we were coming off our biggest weekend we ever had, and I was watching the news, what was happening in Italy and China, and I said to my business partners, look, we need to close. It's not worth it. It's not for the safety of our community, our people who come, and our staff and us. We need to close. We made the front page of the paper as the first business to close downtown. What? Not like the thing you want to be on the paper for. What a trendsetter. I knew that was coming. And then after that, I was kind of depressed. We went into the Riverfront Twin. The building was really dilapidated. Regal, who owned it, was really putting money into the Regal 9 and nothing into the Regal 2. And so we went and we put a new roof. We put in AC. We fixed all the bathrooms. We put on LED lights. We did all this ADA and OSHA stuff. We built stages to make it into a place where you could perform at. And so we sunk, I am working with the SBA and working with Keith Holtway, really held my hand through the whole process, and it was a great, it really helped. I mean, not just hyperbole. I mean, it was a big boon to me getting this business open. And then when we closed, and anybody here have a business that closed? You? What was your business?
Hair salon.
Hair salon? What'd you got?
Media.
What?
studio, media.
A media studio. And there's one thing I want to point out is, you know, you can look at the statistics of all the businesses that closed during quarantine, but the thing that doesn't ever come up in the numbers is that those are dreams that died. Those are like people's dreams. Like that, this whole thing was my dream. It wasn't just about numbers. But the reality was after we closed, it was incredible debt. And so we reached out to the landlord and we were like, hey, you know, we have a 5-year lease. I don't know how long we're going to be closed. You know, when we closed in March 2020, nobody knew what was going on. There was all shifting landscapes. You couldn't make any sort of prediction about what the future was going to be. There was no clue. So we made up all these proposals and we're like, hey, if we're closed for a year, we'll put that year at the end of our lease and then we'll reopen and blah, blah, blah. That was March 2020. He didn't get back to us till Thanksgiving in November. We were just in the dark. And then he said he owes $164,000 from back rent and triple net and property taxes. And we're like, didn't you get our letters? We're trying to negotiate. And then Christmas Eve, he responded again and he goes, if you get out in the next week, well, forget about that back money that you owe us. And you know, at that time there was some sort of moratorium on rent, but also at the same time there was no vaccines really that we knew about, and we didn't know we were going to open the following May. We had no idea, so we got out of there in great debt and couldn't even get anyone to help us move because it was COVID. I couldn't even ask my friends to come in to help us move out of the thing. So my wife and I cleared out that 10,000 square space ourselves. And what we didn't know, the caveat to that little piece of the story, is that the entire time he was trying to sell the building from underneath us. And that's why he pushed us out to sell the building. And no disparity on the people that are in there, but that's the way that went down. So post that happening, I started doing Zoom shows. Anybody ever watch any of those entertaining Zoom shows where you don't have to have your pants on? It was great. I did 200 of those. Because this is what I do. I produce shows. I put on comedy shows. You know, we could all agree. I think there's a lot of sadness and depression in the world, and I use laughing together as a way that everybody can kind of like, you know, be on the same playing field. And I try to be non-elitist about it and have a lot of the shows be free. So after Zoom, things opened up, and then I started doing shows again in the wineries in Scotts Valley, and we were doing all over, anywhere that would have us. And now I found a home at Greater Purpose Brewery, which is in East Cliff Village. It's a really neat business. They donate a lot of money to local charities. I have these cards if you want them after I'm done talking, but it's every Friday and Saturday night. We've built a little cult of comedy there. You know, and one thing is when I opened the lab, I did something you're never supposed to do if you read like guides like on how to start your own business. I hired all my friends. They say never to do that. I hired all comedians. I thought it would be a very fun place to work at. And, you know, and it was. And I think anyone here who runs a small business knows you put in 80 hours a week, if you're lucky, and then you don't get a paycheck, you know? And so, I mean, you know, don't cry for me, Argentina. I mean, I'm glad things worked out the way they did. I'm glad the business is closed, and now we're looking for like a new place to open downtown. And we went to the Nickelodeon recently with some of the people from the city that are here, and again, that building needs $300,000 just to open up for ADA compliancy and a new roof. And I don't know if I want to put that kind of money into someone else's business anymore. So we're on the hunt. I also want to say that we're trying to bring the Santa Cruz Comedy Festival back in the end of the year, or October actually. And the way that it was before we had it in the parking lot was 100 comedians at 12 venues. And the comedians would run around downtown. They perform at your venue, then they would run to the next venue. It was like Amazing Race with no prize. They just run around, tell jokes. And so I'm looking for businesses downtown that are interested in being a part of it this year. It's very simple setup. And then you just bring in your clientele, and then you have a quality show of comedians from Netflix and Amazon and all that, entertaining your people for free.